Today we're going to beta test a new video series for the channel where I visit with local creatives here in Portland. I either visit their studio, their shop, or maybe catch them in the wild when they're on a job, and we'll chat about their craft, what projects they're working on, what inspires them, how they got started, and then maybe if we have time, work on a little collaboration. Today we're going to visit the studio of Alex Stone of Soothefolk. So let's go.
Look right at the camera, or do you want me to? Okay. Hi, I'm Alex Stone. I own a business called Soothefolk in Portland, Oregon, and I work out of my home studio here. And I like to say that I do chain stitch and soft sculpture goods. So chain stitch is a form of embroidery that actually dates back to, I don't know the exact date. I think it's 1100 BC in
Whoa.
China, but
Not know that.
yeah, so chain stitch embroidery machines were invented in 1911, but became kind of popularized from the 30s to the 70s. And they produced a lot of them in the US, and they were sort of popularized because of like the Ivy League sports jackets that started using patches that had stitches that were formed on these machines. It kind of like died down in popularity for some reason. I think people just stopped buying as many. I think honestly because of globalization and fashion moving overseas, there was just like a decrease in American production of goods, and I think that with that sort of came the downfall of these machines. I've been chain stitching for about a year. So
Only a year.
I
yeah,
know.
it's only been a year, which is wild. I worked at Levi's in the Bay Area, and I saw one of the chain stitch machines. They had like the Singer 114 W103, which is kind of the machine that most people know about when they hear about chain stitching machines. Chain stitch embroidery machines, because there's a difference between chain stitch machines and chain stitch embroidery machines. So I found this machine at Levi's, but then it was like 2 years before I started getting into it again. So I went and got my master's degree in applied craft and design,
Oh, wow.
PNCA. And I was sewing a bunch of clothes and making soft sculptures and set design and got into illustration. And then I graduated and I was like, fuck, how am I gonna do my art and make money? Like, I just spent so much money on this degree. I don't want it to go to waste or sit up on a shelf. Like, I want to immediately employ it. And so I had a little bit of money left over from my loans, and I was like, I'm just gonna buy this machine. And I found one for $2,200. That's how much this machine cost.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, like this better pay itself off because I'm not gonna have any money in my account as soon as I buy it. So I bought it, and it got here, and I was like, cool, I'm gonna start chain stitching. And then I realized how hard it was, like so much trial and error. There's 3 areas of tension control. It's a single thread machine, 3 areas of tension control, and you can get so many different kinds of stitches. Like a lot of it is really up to the user to decide what looks good and what doesn't. But then there's a lot of user error that also goes into making a stitch that's maybe it looks good like from the outside, but it's not structurally sound, and it will unravel or the thread will break. And so that whole learning curve was like completely self-taught because there's not any manuals online. There's one handbook that was created by this woman in the late 80s, and it's like the only concrete like handwritten evidence of how to operate one of these machines. And it's taken from a transcript of a video that was filmed, because there used to be like tens of thousands of people that worked in factories on these machines. And somehow all that information
It's under lock and key.
is under lock and key.
So was that video maybe like a training video for like probably it? Wow, that's nuts.
Yeah, really crazy. I will first preface this by saying that I am not a gatekeepy type of artist. Like, I think that more people need to be encouraged to try their hand at art and try their hand at being an art entrepreneur with art. And I just think it's like one of the most satisfying or like self-confidence building things that you can do. And I think everyone should have access to that. So going into this, I realized that there was kind of like a boys club around it, and there was kind of this, history of people learning from being apprenticed by a master, and that doesn't exist anymore. I tried, believe me, to contact people and be like, can you teach me? And there are 2 other chain stitchers in Portland that I know of that have been doing it for a while. One of them, Ben from World Famous Original, shout out to Ben, has been really, really kind and giving me a lot of information, but there's still things that he doesn't have like on-site tutorials, and he said that I could come into a shop and he could like help me troubleshoot my machine, but a lot of it has just been like me trying to educate myself through trial and error and any YouTube videos that I can find on the internet, and like a lot of contending views on this Discord forum that I got invited into. Like I literally had to be sent an invite to learn about any of this, and there's like 50 people on there. I think there's a lot of pride that people feel in making newcomers find their way, because there is like a very intimate relationship, as cheesy as that might sound, like with these machines. Like you really, I mean, you're like cranking it by hand, so you're collaborating with it to make the stitch, versus like using maybe an industrial single needle straight stitch machine where you're kind of like fine tuning it and then letting it do its thing and you're like guiding. This is way more like dual
symbiotic
personality. Exactly.
Do you usually make framed pieces of art? Do you usually chain stitch on like blanks, like a t-shirt or hat, or do you upcycle on garments, one-offs? Like what projects do you work on?
Great question. I prefer to work on vintage jackets. That is the easiest garment to work on because it has a big backspace, and it has kind of these like natural areas where you just are inclined to put it. Like there's pockets, and so you can't sew on top of a layer like a pant pocket. You can't sew on a pant pocket because both of the layers would get stitched together. So there's just like certain intuitive things that you learn, and I think for that reason I like working with garments where there's like a big sewing field where I could do bigger pieces, but then you can also turn it around and there's like areas to kind of accent that big piece in the back. So yeah, I'm currently looking for French short coats because I think they would be amazing to embroider them, but they're so hard to find and they're so expensive. But also, to answer your question, I do like, making like wall pieces. And that's, I feel like that's an area in like the history of chain stitch embroidery that hasn't been explored that much, or if it has, it hasn't been documented that well, or it's not easy to find. And so I think like with my background and getting that MFA, I'm just eager to push the boundaries a little bit more and to also like elevate. I mean, it's pricey in the first place, but like to further elevate the price of these things, because it is an art form and it is like an artistic tool. And I think for a long time, it's kind of fallen in this category of like traditional tattoo, style and like technicians, or I don't even know what you would call them, but I just think putting it on a wall makes it very obvious that like this is a piece of art and you can just charge more, and that's like empowering to be able to do that, you know.
What are your inspirations as far as like when you're coming up with designs? Is it just anything and everything, or there's certain, I know there's sort of the aesthetics of tattoos you mentioned are kind of naturally imbued into the history of chain stitch, but like are there any other certain artists or areas, or I don't know, just anything at all? It could be like, I love, performative dance. It could be anything. We're just,
so much inspires me, but I think what I've like found is kind of the cornerstone of everything is folk art, because it goes very well with my like idea of people trying to make art on their own, and even if it doesn't come out well, it's like it's your unique style, it's your hand that's doing it, so there's no rules around it, and you're embodying things that people can uniquely understand and experience and be like, oh yeah, I know what that is, and so I think there's something like really liberating about that, honestly, because my illustrations are like kind of childish, but it's because I've never been trained to formally draw, and so I'm literally drawing like a 7-year-old because I never drew growing up. Like,
Yeah.
But I also think it's cool for people to like see that out in the world and see people doing well with that kind of style. And just coincidentally, it's like popular right now to do stuff in that style. One of my favorite artists is Maria Primachenko. She was a Ukrainian folk artist who became like the symbol of folk art in the Ukraine. And she, when she was 11, was diagnosed with polio and was bedridden. And she grew up in this small village where there was a lot of like folklore. And so she started having these dreams about these beasts, and she started illustrating them with like pencil, basically, with really colorful pencil. And she created an enormous body of work, and it's like the coolest thing ever because it's sort of, I don't know, it looks like maybe an adult. It's very ambiguous, like who the narrator was, but it's also just so creative and like out of the ordinary, but it's like really beautiful, and there's a lot of flowers, and I just think her stuff is like the perfect combination of like light and dark. Like she's dealing with really dark stuff and she's talking about it in a way that's like really vibrant and colorful. And that's kind of like what I pursue with my art, because I have chronic pain. I feel like that's kind of also one of the reasons that I make the type of artwork that I do, or like deep down I want to talk about it somehow. I don't always do that, but that's kind of like a goal of mine maybe in the future. It's just like interesting when you find people that it's so clear that they have such a like precise way of expressing something, and it's so unique to them, and it's so consistent throughout the entire body of their work, and it's almost like they're speaking their own language. And I think there's something really inspiring about that. It's like this person knew how to articulate whatever thought or feeling this was, like so perfectly in their way. Yeah. This is a big piece that I did for the show at Aftertime Collective this year. That was a self-portrait, and the story was essentially that I got chased home one night when I was living in France. So I kind of created the scene about like a woman in trouble, and she was surrounded by this moon and stars, these soft sculptures. And yeah, it was interesting. I'm really glad that it was like my first gallery show, and it turned out really well. So
the soft sculpture. So
yeah, you can touch it.
I know. I was like, oh.
Yeah, you can pick it up and stuff. It's like it's hand painted, and it's got my like very sloppy hand stitching on it, and this is like my design illustration wise of this moon, but it's kind of like reminiscent of the old fables, like the cow jumped over the moon type like the dark kind of kid illustrations, like so this is the unwatchful moon, technically. That's its title. And then I had 2 of those stars, and then this piece along with 4 other pieces were chain stitched on this chain stitch machine. So if you want to come in close, this took like an entire day to fill, and my fill is not perfect, but I kind of did that on purpose because it adds like a little bit more of an illustrative texture to it. And then this whole thing has been stained with tea, and I put some unlucky symbols on one leg and bad and good luck symbols on the other. Yeah, so this is Alex running.
So the whole thing, how long did that take you?
Probably 3 days to make the whole thing, which is like really fast in the art world. But
when you're
felt like
on the machine,
forever, like 3 days straight with no rest. I just sit and did that for 3 days. Yeah, and this is like the prima donna, my conso that doesn't have a name other than conso. So yeah.
I brought a few garments because I didn't know what textures or thicknesses or whatever would work best with chain stitch. So I don't know if we could go through a few of these and you could be like, yes, no.
Totally. Okay. Sounds good. I'll tell you why too.
Yeah. Okay. So
love this bag. First of all, this is Laurs Kemp.
Oh yeah. We had that in a video. I don't know. That video might be on the cutting floor, like lost to time or whatever.
This is really like a perfect material. It's just like a medium weight woven canvas, and chain stitch needles are kind of thick, so this will work really, really well with this. There won't be too much puckering, pulling. So that's a good one. So if I were to be shopping around at a thrift store, fabrics that are finer and a little bit more slippery to the hand are going to be harder to work with. And the reason why is because a lot of fine fabrics the weave is too thin or fine for the needle size. I run like a 7 needle size, which is about the thickness of, I don't know, like a common nail, like a nail that's this long. Slightly thinner than that actually, but it's just going to puncture holes in the fabric. So I could do a design, but you would find that the area would pull in the fabric around it, and then you would see like around the circumference that there are kind of like fraying bits.
Okay.
So
not so much
for that reason, I would not use either of these, but they're really beautiful.
Okay.
This could work well. I will need to add like a stabilizer to the back of it, and that will just help reduce like shifting of the fabric. And stabilizer also helps to allow the needle to perform more seamlessly, so the stitches will look more uniform.
Is it kind of like interfacing?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh yeah, this was
love this.
Yeah, I was like doing like faux corsetry, so that way you get that fitted look and that sort of, I don't know, lingerie sort of look.
Yeah, again, perfect time to show that sewing on top of pockets means that you have to put the entire piece under the needle, which means that you'll end up stitching through both layers, which is not fun because thread is coming from the bottom of the machine. So something like this, I could do like around the corners and down here or above, but any stitching on top would render it unable to open.
We wouldn't have that pocket.
Love something like this.
Oh yeah, this
so
is
much.
This will be a future vid maybe. We're gonna start a revolution where you flip everything inside out, because it's like, look at all this interest, look at all these details.
So great.
So that's something we're working on. I'm gonna have to flip the buttons.
Who wears jackets for weather anyway?
I know, exactly, and it still probably would work.
Warm.
I have tried to dye a trench and it did not go well because it was like slide right off.
Oh no!
So I would flip the buttons. So okay, so this is a future project I might work on. And I might do like red trim, anyways.
Yeah.
So, but as far as a trench coat,
this would work great for chain stitching.
And a big
kind
back.
of a little bit of a finer weave, but like it has a really large backside. This
storm flap thing or whatever it's called.
Storm flap. There's a chance that I could get this on my machine without stitching through the back layer, so that's also kind of interesting. But most likely it would just go over and bond these two layers together. Thicker panels are great too, like this. I could do something along the what do you call this, dart?
What is it? I know it's a placket.
Placket.
I know.
Placket here, placket there.
I know. Sorry, we're gonna get letters. Yeah, I was gonna say a vent placket. I'm sure there's a term in
this vent placket.
Yeah.
Chain stitch on. Sleeves are possible too on this if they're big enough. It would, again, this is kind of like a nylon, so, or whatever.
And the sleeve, I'm sure it's hard to get a sleeve. Probably near
impossible. I could do shoulders actually, but it is a lot of, it's hard to do.
Yeah.
It's not easy. Okay, this is like the most glorious thing ever.
And this gorgeous 6X
also probably the most gorgeous type of material to work with. Sorry,
I'm noticing all the threads.
That's good. It's got a pretty loose weave, which is really good, but I would definitely put stabilizer behind it to, I mean, just in general, you should put stabilizer behind everything or on top of the fabric, but like canvas, you can get away with not, like certain denims, you can get away with not having it if you're pulling a fast and loose one. But you should usually have stabilizer. I know. I just do it because I'm lazy and it doesn't always work, but I hide it pretty well. So.
But yeah, like so on a shirt, you know, you got, I guess this. I'm assuming this area of the back.
Yeah, the chest is great. Like typically, text goes on the front left pocket because you read it from your right. So that's kind of like the traditional side. And then, I mean, this is great. Like the sleeves are big enough where I can really fit it onto the machine. And then this is actually a great example of an area that's challenging to do stuff on because of this.
Is it box plate?
Yeah, an
inverted box plate. So yeah, this is like a perfect garment to work with. I 100% approve of this.
All right, approved.
Oh my god.
The smoke.
My god, it's amazing. It's wool. Is it? It's wool blend. I could like actually do the cuff of this, which is really, really cool. Even though it's fairly thick, it's like it's not a super dense wool, so Yeah, this one would like be a really, it's kind of like the gold standard for chain stitching right here. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh my
so
god,
what
this
about-
is a perfect example of something that is very hard to
Okay. Yeah, it's very
stitch.
simple. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so sweater knits.
Sweaters are really hard. I can do beanies. This would be possible, but I would not do more than like lettering on it, like one line of script, and that's it.
All right.
Basically, because it's like it doesn't have enough structure to be able to hold the stitch, to keep the stitch length consistent enough to hold it in a way that like looks uniform. So
okay, so here are the contenders, but I feel like the tote would be easy.
yes,
Maybe we could do cursive or whatever. I don't know if you do different fonts.
Cursive is the easiest,
Okay,
and I'll show you why.
Okay.
But yeah,
maybe loose dudes.
Let's
kind
do
of our
loose
little. I
dudes.
don't know, our little not mascot. What's the word?
Your
our little
catchphrase. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I'm gonna
So the
kinda watch the
stabilizer.
fun. Yeah, so I've got this interfacing that is not usually the one that I use, but I've got a little extra of it right now, and I'm just going to kind of show you. I've ripped it off in the past for other things, but I'll just kind of cut it down, cut that piece of tape off, cut it down to like approximate size that I want, but leave the area around it a little bit bigger. After we cut the stabilizer or the interfacing down to a little bit larger than the area that I'm going to stitch, I'm going to select the side that I want. I'm going to go for the front side here because our tag's there on the back. We're going to flip the whole thing inside out. Actually, before we do that, flip it and reverse it. We're going to do a little eyeballing because this is how the professionals.
No, I mean, yeah, no.
professionals
Big and
do it.
eyeballing, yeah.
So I'm going to lay down some tape kind of in the area that I'm thinking of doing the design. And this is just going to help me kind of stay in a straight line when I'm drawing out these words. So yeah, I'm just going to kind of lay down the first layer. This is the fun of chain stitching when you do it in your own style. You just get to kind of like be a little bit more playful. Bag's been flipped inside out. I'm going to kind of just place this giant square, which is going to be bigger than what we need. And now we're going to come around to the machine. The machine has been turned on. I've got it threaded. Louis, it's not playtime right now. We played all morning. And I'm just going to kind of use this opening here as like a reference point for where I'm going to start. So Loose. So, all right, here we go. So I'm just freehanding under the machine with the hand crank for this.
Okay, that's what you're saying. The hand crank is kind of
Yes.
guiding the way. Okay. I know. I'm like trying to understand. Oh my god. That looks so good.
Thanks.
Oh my god.
And I just kind of went over the front and the back twice just for structural integrity. The threads will just stay in place for longer even after I've tied them off. So I just cut the thread. There's only one thread, so it's going to start to pull one of them in as I move the bag. But this is nice because I don't have to like reposition anything really. That nice little squeak going.
Oh, we got a squeak too.
Love it, really.
At home, in the studio.
At the farm.
And you to oil it every day.
Yep, every single day.
I'm trying to.
And I got a little crooked over here, but it'll be kind of cute.
Well, it's a loose dude. I mean, again, it all works.
That's what it looks like from the back side. The cool thing about this interfacing is that you can just like tear it off pretty easily. It's not going to hurt anything to keep it on there. Like you can wash it and stuff. It'll kind of just dissolve. There's a whole bunch of different kinds that you can find. Some of them are tear away, some of them are wash away, some of them are cut away.
The reveal.
The reveal.
Ooh. Wow.
So there's your cute little guy with the 2 threads that we have to tuck. It's pretty loose, dude.
Yeah,
it's like a little crooked there.
No, it's perfect.
So
that was great.
And then all that there is to do left is I'm gonna just take my little guys, my little snips, snip off the thread ends because they get like a little frizzy frazzled.
Yeah, afraid.
And now I've got some clean ends that I can just poke in really quick. Poke, tuck, and roll. This is a 2-ply thread, so it does come out of its twist sometimes. Like the 2 strands will untwist, and it becomes very hard on the spot to thread needles when everyone's like looking at you.
Yeah, no.
You know?
We understand.
So that's always fun, but I'm just kind of doing a little loop around the pre-existing stitches on the back, just to keep it from unraveling. That's kind of my method for tying off right now. I've seen some people who like double knot it, some people who knot it and then kind of drag it along underneath all of the stitches so it goes from one side of the letter to the other. But it's pretty woolly. It's not like super likely to come out unless you tug on it if it's not tied off correctly. It's going to be its own thing.
Perfect. Yep. All about interpretation.
Yes. Ta-da!
So cute.
There you have it,
Oh my
loose
God.
dudes.
Happy
Get your
customer.
Loose dudes.
Loose dudes.
Okay.
I love it.
Thank you.
Couldn't be happier.
Yay.
Well, where can people find you if they want to reach out or check out your stuff?
So you can find me at soothefolk@gmail.com for email, soothefolk.us for my website, and visit me at Soothefolk on Instagram.
Perfect. Here's the tote bag in the wild. I loved getting to visit Alex's studio. I've only seen her at pop-ups, and she just made it look so easy. So now that I know more of the nitty-gritty, I'm completely blown away, but also completely inspired. I'm thrilled to start this new video series because selfishly, I want to check out other people's studios, but also I want to explore other areas of design and maybe see how that can incorporate into upcycling, and also so I can meet my neighbors, because Portland is such a warm, creative community, and I'm just hoping to highlight some of these makers, and maybe that will inspire you to take up a craft, or maybe to explore your local community. I think that's one for the books. Now go on, you good thing. On, you good thing. And then wait, yeah, where do I walk off now? Do I just drop down?
Like
Wait,
an elevator.
Yeah.
Like,
I can't do that physical comedy. I don't think my knees are that good. Sorry, I feel like I'm on Dateline. I don't know, and I'm like, yeah,
Is this how it feels
yeah, I
to be
know.
Barbara Walters.
yeah. I'm Keith Morrison. Let me lean on something. That maybe just to kind of fluff it up.
It's not a deflated, sad thing. There we go.
Deflated sad thing. That was my nickname in college.
I'm so glad I was recording.